Prise du débat, resuming debate, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it is an honour to rise to speak on the motion that is brought forward by the member for Banff Ardrey. I want to begin by commending him for his advocacy and his dedication to this important issue. And, I know it comes from a place of great sincerity. The death of any child is a tragedy. As any parent would tell you, it is something that is almost literally unthinkable, not because it never happens, but rather because the mere process of thinking about losing your child is simply too upsetting for words. Somehow, this becomes even more true when it comes to losing a child suddenly, as is the case with sudden infant death syndrome. Not only is there an unimaginable grief that any parent would feel after losing a child, there is the shock of the abruptness, the suddenness of it all. The shock from your entire world being turned upside down in an instant. All of us have heard the terrifying stories from parents who've had to experience such pain firsthand. I was listening very carefully to the member for Flamborough-Glanbrook just now and touched by his words as well. And my heart goes out to him and to his community and to every family who is touched by this very tragic syndrome. This is what makes a motion like M110 so important. It shines a light on an issue that too often doesn't get enough attention. Our society doesn't handle grieving very well. Grief, yes, because tears and raw emotion make for affecting pictures and memorable headlines, but actual grieving, the personal way people handle loss over the longer term, is something that usually takes place hidden away in the shadows. It's not something that gets brought out into the open very often. And M110, in its own way, confronts this tendency head-on. It does so by asking us to think about how we support parents who've lost an infant child, particularly when they have lost a child to sudden or unexpected causes. It's not a comfortable conversation to have by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a necessary one. And that is why, with a few very minor amendments that I hope the member opposite will have no problem supporting, and I'll get to those in a few moments, our government will be indeed supporting Motion 110. Our government supports this motion. Our government supports this motion because it aligns with what our government has done since taking office, and that is wanting to engage and consult with Canadians to make sure that we have an employment insurance system that is flexible enough and responsible enough to be there for them when they need it most. And again, I want to commend the sponsoring member for having this discussion because it has brought into light the importance of this issue and is a way in which we can collaborate. And if only we had more occasions where we could cooperate in a bipartisan fashion, I think this place, not only would we get done more in this chamber, but I think Canadians would applaud it all around. And this is what has driven us to create a new EI caregiver benefit to allow people to care for loved ones during times of suffering for up to 15 weeks. It's why we replaced the Parents of Critically Ill Children benefit with a new and enhanced employment insurance family caregiver benefit for children that expands the eligible support network to include all family members rather than just parents. Nous avons facilité l'accès aux avantages pour les proches aidants en permettant aux infirmières praticiennes de signer des certificats médicaux plutôt que seulement des médecins, ce qui simplifie et accélérer le processus de demande. Nous avons amélioré le congé de décès dans le Code canadien du travail qui permettra aux employés du secteur sous réglementation fédérale de prendre un congé de deuil de 5 jours au lieu de 3 jours après le décès immédiat d'un membre de la famille. Nous avons également instauré un nouveau congé pour responsabilité familiale qui permettra aux employés de prendre jusqu'à 3 jours de congé sans solde supplémentaire pour assumer leurs responsabilités familiales sans craindre de perdre leur emploi. Dans le budget de 2018, nous avons élargi les dispositions relatives aux allocations de maternité et de maladie, ce qui permettra aux mères et aux personnes atteintes de maladies ou de blessures de planifier leur retour au travail tout en conservant une plus grande partie de leurs prestations d'assurance emploi. Most recently, just a few weeks ago, we introduced the new Canada benefit for parents of young victims of crime, which will replace the existing income supports for parents of missing and murdered children with a system that is more flexible, more generous, and more accessible. With each of these changes, we wanted to make it easier for Canadians to balance family life with work responsibilities. None of these new or enhanced programs, of course, could even begin to help parents fully process the loss of a child. But in some way, they can help parents begin the healing process. I'll also note that these changes were introduced following consultations with Canadians, with employers and employees to make sure that everyone involved had their voices heard. That is why our government supports this motion, because by talking about these issues and hearing from the people affected by it, we can ensure that the government programs and services currently in place are flexible enough to meet the needs of Canadians when they need it most. We want to commend the member from Banff Airdrie for his tireless advocacy on behalf of grieving parents in support of this motion. As I noted earlier, while we fully support this motion's intent, we're hoping that the member will be open to making two small changes to his motion that would acknowledge the spirit of committee independence and ensure that in its study, the Standing Committee is open to studying the full range of benefits and services available to help grieving parents. Therefore, I move the following, seconded by the member for Central Nova, that the motion be amended by replacing the words, in quotes, instructed to undertake a study, with the words, in quotes, requested to undertake a study, and secondly, by replacing the words, in quotes, particularly from employment insurance parental benefits, with the words, in quotes, including employment insurance parental benefits. And with that, I'll conclude my remarks. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
It's my duty to inform the honourable member that, pursuant to Standing Order 93.3, no amendment may be proposed to a private member's motion or the motion for second reading of a private member's bill unless the sponsor of the item indicates his or her consent. Therefore, I ask the honourable member for Banff Airdrie if he or she consents to this amendment being moved.
I do consent, Mr. Speaker.
Good.